In 1832, Katharine and I boarded the RPS Horace and set sail for distant shores. After a long voyage, we arrived in Boston, where we attended PAX East 2022. Now, you might be wondering, why am I making a video about PAX East when it took place 200 years ago? The answer to that question is simple, my friend. I've been really busy, but also we were lucky enough to play a bunch of super cool indie games that we really wanted to highlight, regardless of how long it's been since we attended the show. Since 2010, the PAX Rising Showcase has carefully handpicked a selection of indie games to be featured on the show floor, allowing developers to give PAX attendees hands-on access to their upcoming projects. 2022 was no exception, with 12 unique titles available to play. Katharine and I managed to try out all 12 and wanted to bring you our thoughts on this year's selection. So although this video is a few months late, here's our roundup of the PAX Rising Showcase selection from PAX East 2022. Half of this script was written by our wonderful editor Katharine Castle, while the other half was written by me. Enjoy. Wake up, samurai, we've got a new sci-fi action game to play. No, we're not talking about Cyberpunk 2077 here. This is Blind Fate Ido no Yami, an upcoming hack-and-slash game from Troglodytes Games and 101XP, where you play a blind warrior out for revenge. Set in an alternate version of Japan's Tokugawa period, you'll be using your tech-infused mask of the Oni to switch between sound, smell, and heat sensors to detect enemies and explore the world around you. This was a real treat when we played it at PAX East. The demo on show was fairly short, but it was all about that sweet swordplay and colour-coded sensory system. Thanks to your nifty mask, the world of Blind Fate is presented like a 2D side-scroller, creating a simulated version of your surroundings so you can run, jump and mash that attack button to your heart's content. The only place your mask falls short is picking up enemies, so you'll need to switch sensors and listen out for their footsteps in order to identify them. Once you root out those invisible nasties though, that's where the good stuff happens. Combat felt like equal parts Sekiro and Ninja Gaiden in our short time with the game, as breaking an enemy's stance gives you a small window to deliver a lightning-fast special attack. It's slick, satisfying stuff, and you look and feel incredibly stylish doing it too. Blind Fate Ido no Yami, you've pierced our heart. I've got a real soft spot when it comes to turn-based stealth games. Desperado 3's particular blend of cowboy sneakiness was a real treat and gave me quite the appetite for games that combine the turn-based action of an XCOM with the silent takedowns of a Metal Gear Solid. Cybernight's Flashpoint looks set to satisfy that particular craving. Playing as a team of mercenaries, it's your goal to perform heists against corporations in a grim cyberpunk vision of the future. Sure, you can go in all guns blazing, but you won't last long if a guard spots you and raises the alarm. The smarter option is to play it safe, utilising your cyber gadgets to disable security cameras and distract roaming enemies. However, a small chat with the developer revealed that the game is designed to replicate the high-stakes drama that makes heist movies so exciting. Sure, you may manage to break into a vault undetected, but that doesn't mean you won't get caught just as you're attempting to escape. The short demo I played ended with a frantic shootout against waves of powerful armoured enemies as we waited for an extraction. It was a fraught scenario, my gang of criminals lifted out of the carnage just before things got too ugly. If Cyberknights can maintain that sense of tension throughout its campaign, it could be something very special indeed. We've seen asymmetrical multiplayer games rise and fall over the years, RIP Evolve, but Devigo takes the whole monster-bashing teeny tiny humans premise to a whole different realm. No, really, this is a cross-reality game that's part VR, part local PC multiplayer. For the headset wearer in the group, it's all about using your giant orange disembodied hands to hoik anything and everything at your tiny opponents. Trees, boulders, punching or swatting them with your own fists, you get the idea. Classic VR Hulk smash type stuff. The folks playing on PC, however, are surprisingly nippy little blighters, who also have a worrying number of bombs and rockets to hand. You can see where this is going, can't you? Locked in an eternal battle of fists and rockets, the VR giant only had 2 foes to try and pummel on the crowded PAX Rising booth, but the final version of the game will support up to 4 PC players when it eventually launches into early access. That's a lot for one giant orange head to think about, although with Steam Remote Play and Parsec support incoming as well, at least they won't have to worry about cramming everyone into a single living room. No release date just yet, but it will support every VR headset under the sun when it enters early access soon. Demon's Mirror is a roguelike deck builder that takes heavy influence from your Slay the Spires and your monster trains with an interesting and unique twist. Yes, you draw cards at the start of every turn and can use energy to perform attacks on the horrid little enemies you encounter as you progress. However, alongside your hand of cards, you can also choose to interact with a match 3 puzzle board that sits to the side of the play area. Dragging your mouse over identical icons will allow you to perform powerful attacks or gain defensive bonuses, and enemy strikes can also be deflected by chaining together a specific amount of relevant icons. At first it all feels a little bit much, but after a few rounds it's clear that this is a match made in heaven. A match 3 made in heaven, you could say. I am so sorry. Keep your eye on Demon's Mirror, it has real potential. It took me so long to make this video that since we were at PAX, Dwarf has been released. Still, it's definitely worth highlighting as this was the best thing I played during my time at the show. Dwarf, at its core, is a tower defense game. As the titular Dwarf, you can use gems to build a number of gadgets that automatically attack waves of enemies. However, unlike most games in this genre that often see you defending a base or some kind of big crystal, you're instead trying to protect yourself against waves of goblins and big wasps. The game isn't locked to a series of fixed arenas either. Taking influence from classic Legend of Zelda titles, you're free to explore sizable locations, desperately attempting to force enemies to move through natural lanes in the environment when attacked. It's smart stuff, and I should really pick this up sometime soon. Hostile Mars asks a potentially dangerous question. Well, dangerous for me. What if Satisfactory was a tower defense game? As someone who loses hundreds of hours to games in both genres, I am genuinely terrified that Hostile Mars is destined to take over my life. Here's the pitch. You're an astronaut, seemingly trapped on the Red Planet, desperately attempting to survive against wave after wave of ferocious robots. Thankfully, you have the technical know-how to construct a bunch of useful machines that can convert the components dropped by the flood of dangerous automatons into useful gadgets such as turrets or walls. The short demo I played demonstrated a smart understanding of what makes these two genres so compatible. The robots are your resources, you see, and the supply chains you set up are your means of defense. Building walls allows you to funnel robots into death mazes of your own construction, and the solid shooting system allows you to get involved in the action yourself. I think I'm one of the few who enjoyed Factorio's alien threat, finding it added a bit of texture that sat neatly alongside its puzzle-like automation mechanics. Hostile Mars hits a lot of those same beats, but skews slightly more towards something like Orcs Must Die, which is interesting. Its most impressive feature, however, is just how many bloody robots it can show on the screen at one time. There were thousands of them at once, and this was just a demo. I can't wait to see more when it launches later this year. Cyberpunk RPGs are certainly in vogue at the moment, but Keylocker is something special. Made by small indie developer Munana, Keylocker is a turn-based action RPG that cites Chrono Trigger and the Mario and Luigi series as some of its key inspirations. Set in a world where music has been banned and all musicians have been imprisoned, Keylocker sees you step into the shoes of Bobo, a singer who busts out of captivity to form a rebel band. Along her travels, she'll meet up with Simon, a guitarist with a natty haircut, a young girl called Panda who's got a mean keytar, and Rocket, a jukebox robot turned drummer. Together they'll biff creepy pyramid head boys in cloaks and other robotic nasties with the power of sound and electricity, duking it out in ice isometric grids and rhythmic attack patterns. With 4 distinct classes for Bobo to choose from, including the heavy-hitting Juggernaut, the fast and aggressive Samurai, the tricksy, buff-focused Hacker, and the more musical-focused Sequencer, plus branching storylines, it looks like Keylocker will have plenty of reasons to go back for an encore too. Due out in August 2023, we'll be the first in line when it takes centre stage next year. Ever thought Super Smash Bros. Could be improved by removing the floor and chucking all of its characters into space? Then you better launch into Orbitals, an upcoming party brawler made by Alleyway Games. In these anti-gravity death pits, you'll need to smash, shoot, and explode other players off the map to earn special colour-coded orbs. Whoever gets the most of their own colour wins, but here's the thing. These orbs can be destroyed by other players, so you'll need to nab your rewards quickly if you don't want all your hard work to go to waste. We had a grand time with this at PAX East, holding down one trigger to engage our anti-gravity boots and the other to blast our opponents. Letting go of the anti-gravity button will see you float off into space. Handy when you want to do an extra big jump or use the thrust of your gun to loop round a piece of scenery to take your mates by surprise. But you'll need to be careful you don't accidentally fly off the edge of the screen and do yourself a mischief. There's also going to be a single player and co-op story mode when the game comes out in its broad 2022-2023 release window, and if its levels are anything like its chaotic multiplayer mode, Orbitals could be out of this world. Sorry, we'll stop now. Orbitals wasn't the only frantic multiplayer game we saw on the PAX Rising booth. Plunder Panic, the swashbuckling arcade pirate fight-em-up from Will Win Games, was also brewing up a storm, showing off its mad 12-strong multiplayer battles. With 2 teams of 6 moored on either side of the screen, Plunder Panic is all about grabbing that sweet, sweet treasure and using any dastardly means to get it, whether that's firing cannonballs into your opponent's ship to try and scuttle it, killing the enemy captain, sneaking in on a rowboat while everyone's slicing each other up with their cutlasses above, or just repeatedly plundering every last available treasure chest on board. It's good, chaotic fun, especially once you start adding modifiers and power-ups into the mix. Out now in early access, RPS supporters can still grab the game for free by logging into their ReadPop IDs and heading to the codes page in their profile. Go on, hop to it, you scurvy sea dogs. Power Chord was the second roguelike card builder to be featured as part of this year's showcase, and like Demon's Mirror, it left a solid first impression. As you'd expect, structurally Power Chord resembles Slay the Spire. There are cards, there are energy meters, there's a map screen filled with nodes that you travel between in order to progress. What sets Power Chord apart, however, is its framing. Power Chord is about a heavy metal band competing against demons and dive bars in order to save the world. It's rad. Before a run, you choose 4 characters to make up your fictional rock act. Characters are split up into 4 classes: singer, bassist, guitarist, and drummer. Each of these classes are based on traditional RPG archetypes: healers, tanks, wielding their instruments like weapons. Cards also belong to each character, making each run different depending on who you bring along with you. Now, I didn't get a huge amount of time with Power Chord, which is a shame, but what I played I absolutely adored. It looks great, it sounds great, it plays great. No word on a release date just yet, but there's a demo available on Steam for those interested in trying it out for themselves. Party on. Grapple hooks, smapple hooks. Everyone knows the best way to travel around Metroid-like universes is with a grapple hook on a bungee cord. Yeah, that's right. Rusted Moss is a physics action platformer that knows how to travel in style, even if everything around you is trying to kill you all the time. Set in a beautiful but deadly post-apocalypse where machines, nature, and the supernatural collide, this was one of the most intriguing demos we played on the whole PAX Rising booth. The demo took us through the game's opening tutorial section, showing us the ropes, literally in this case, before chucking some bosses at us that were hard as nails. And we didn't even get to its terrifying looking bullet hell sections either. Those are going to be interesting. Still, despite dying horribly multiple times in a row on the demo's final boss battle, we came away super impressed with Rusted Moss and can't wait to see more when it launches later this year. The next game from the studio that brought us the devastating Bury Me My Love, The Wreck is an achingly beautiful 3D visual novel about grief, family, and survival. You play as Yunnon, a floundering scriptwriter in her mid-30s who's having what's probably the worst day of her life. Her estranged mother's in hospital, she has a car accident, and memories of the past are resurfacing left, right, and centre. It's these memories you'll need to comb through and revisit in order to find closure and advance the story, scrubbing backwards and forwards through time to find clues and piece information together. Did that baby bird really die by falling out of the tree? What was that suitcase doing by the doorway? And while we're on the subject, Mum always was a bit too handy with her paint scrapping knife, wasn't she? By interrogating these kind of questions, Yunnon's hazy memories suddenly become clear, although what you decide to do with your freshly remembered knowledge is up to you. Back in the present day, selecting different dialogue options will alter the game's story, sending Yunnon on multiple different paths that could see her embrace her messy future or end in its nasty titular disaster. Beautifully presented with a kind of stilted Heaven's Vault animation style, the Wreck is definitely going to deliver one powerful gut punch when it launches later this year. So there we have it, our thoughts on every game featured as part of this year's PAX Rising Showcase. Has anything caught your eye? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.